Here's what you missed in the last 12 hours. You had one video worth catching up on from Brian Lunjuk at the Lunjuk Journal, where he delivered a passionate takedown of what he considers the industry's biggest recurring mistake. Let's dive right into Brian Lunjuk's latest, where he was absolutely fired up about what he calls the worst software engineering mistake of all time: deciding to rewrite code from scratch. Lunjuk came across like a grizzled veteran programmer who's watched this same tragedy play out over and over again, and he was clearly exasperated that we're still making the same mistakes that supposedly smart people figured out decades ago. His core argument is that experienced developers, the ones with gray in their hair and beards, who lived through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, universally learned that rewriting software from scratch is catastrophic 99 times out of 100. But he's seeing current developers, particularly in the Ubuntu and Rust communities, throwing away battle-tested code for unproven rewrites, and he's not having it. Lunjuk spent a good chunk of time walking through Joel Spolsky's famous article, Things You Should Never Do Part 1, from April 2000. He actually remembered reading it when it was published while working at Microsoft. The article uses Netscape 6 as the poster child for this mistake. Netscape decided to rewrite their browser code from scratch, which took almost 3 years, during which their market share absolutely plummeted. What's particularly telling is there was no Netscape 5. They spent so long rewriting that they skipped a whole version number. Spolsky provided other brutal examples, too. Borland made the same mistake when they bought Arago and tried to turn it into DBase for Windows, then repeated the error rewriting Quattro Pro from scratch. Even Microsoft nearly fell into this trap with something called the Pyramid Project to rewrite Word for Windows, but they were saved because they kept working on the old codebase simultaneously. Lunjuk paused here to point out that current developers making rewrite decisions probably don't even know what DBase, Quattro Pro, or Borland are, which really gets to his broader point about experience levels in the industry. The psychological insight Spolsky shared really hit home. Programmers are architects at heart who want to bulldoze everything and build something grand rather than do incremental improvements. The fundamental issue is that it's harder to read code than to write it. That's just a law of programming. What looks like messy, bloated code is actually years of accumulated bug fixes. That ugly 2-page function contains fixes for Nancy's specific Internet Explorer issue, low memory conditions, floppy disk problems, Windows 95 compatibility quirks. Each bug fix might only be a couple characters of code, but it represents weeks of real-world usage to discover the problem and days to reproduce and fix it. When you throw away old code, you're discarding all that institutional knowledge and giving competitors a 2 to 3 year head start. Lunjuk applied this directly to Ubuntu, arguing they had market dominance in Linux, but decided to trash their stable working system with decades of optimizations. Instead, they're using new code written by part-time developers in an unfinished programming language with an unfinished compiler. What makes this worse than in Spolsky's era is modern continuous deployment. Back in 2000, software shipped on CDs or floppies as complete releases. If you rewrote from scratch, you simply couldn't ship for a while, which hurt market share, but at least you weren't shipping broken software. But Ubuntu ships new versions every 6 months with daily repository updates, so they're shipping untested, rewritten code instead of waiting for it to be stable. This creates a reputation for broken software rather than just slow releases. Lunjuk quoted Steven Sinofsky, the former head of Microsoft Windows, who said developers would gladly plan releases as retyping all their code using new tools, new coding conventions, and proper indentation, and that project management's job is helping them avoid this destructive impulse. Drawing from his own experience as an engineering manager, Lunjuk described how even talented developers inevitably wanted to rewrite projects from scratch because existing code wasn't perfect. His job was keeping them focused on the proven, money-making code while allowing optimization and cleanup, but never full rewrites. He characterized this as having a little Danny DeVito on your shoulder encouraging rewrites that you absolutely must resist. He wrapped up the technical content by arguing that current engineers and managers either lack the experience to know these hard-won lessons or have simply forgotten them, with no senior leadership present to override these decisions. He found it genuinely strange that the industry has somehow forgotten lessons that were supposedly settled in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. The video ended with an extended pitch for Lunjuk Journal subscriptions, including lifetime options, DRM-free downloads, and something called a retro computer-themed wall of shame for lifetime subscribers. He's apparently planning a seventh wall and offered to follow lifetime subscribers on Twitter to see their posts among the thousands of replies he gets weekly. That's your catch-up for today. Lunjuk's frustration really came through. He genuinely seems concerned that we're repeating expensive mistakes that previous generations of developers already paid to learn.